Hi, Rish.
I mean, just how bad are things? I mean, I was looking at some of the stats that you had that I think in Japan, which we'll come to properly, just 3% of board members are women.
And in Korea, even less.
Less than 3%?
Yep. So Hong Kong, by comparison, is 11.1% and is improving slowly, glacially, but it is improving.
So why? That's what you've got to address, isn't it? And then how to deal with it.
Okay, so firstly, there's a global problem, which is that boards, mostly men, don't see this as a problem. In Hong Kong, it's much more, I think, prevalent. And so, firstly, you've got to deal with the primary issue of getting boards to recognise that gender diversity, board diversity, groupthink is something they need to address. So, you know, how do we do that? We need to get boards to use external forces, external search firms, to help them appoint new directors, and at present they don't. They use their friends and family, which perpetuates the problem. And I think women need to become more visible.
Well, and, you know, there's good reason, there's a good business case, as I mentioned in an introduction to you, to actually have women on the board.
McKinsey, Catalyst, BlackRock, all have done huge studies for the last 10 years. And each study comes out and reinforces the previous one, which is that companies make more returns, better rewards, long-term success for their stakeholders.
Why is that the case?
I think where you have boards made up of only one gender or only one group of people, groupthink becomes a problem. And boards need a degree of tension. The non-execs need to hold the executives to boot, to be responsible for their actions. Maybe that's an issue at Volkswagen, for example. Is groupthink an issue there? So you need to have a degree of tension at board. Question now is, you know, if you only have 1 in 9 women on boards, you don't have enough diversity. You don't have enough individuals challenging the status quo.
But, you know, that also, you know, you could argue that if this is actually truly meritocratic, then you're going to get women, and maybe women aren't cutting it. It could be the devil's advocate argument.
Yeah, it could be, if that was the case. If you had lots of women churning on boards because they weren't lasting, but they're not getting to boards. So it's not just a board issue, it's also the pipeline underneath the board. So
is that because there's a ceiling underneath? underneath.
There's a ceiling underneath the ceiling. Yeah, there's a leaking pipeline. You know, when you get to different countries, but 30, 35, women have children, they don't return to the workplace. We've got to find ways to getting more women to return and women not to leave to do other things.
Tell me something, Nick, you know, just getting back to Japan as promised. Now, Shinzo Abe sees the problem, but that's also partly down to the fact that they have this, obviously, this whole issue with an ageing population, too.
Yeah.
How does he get womenomics going?
OK, so they've just passed a law. Whether it's a good law or I don't know, but they've passed a law that says that all companies, all public companies in Japan have to declare their gender balance. If they lie, there will be a penalty. But if they go from 0 to 0, there is no penalty for that either. So it's quite a soft law.
It's pointless.
Well, I think the point is to actually raise it as an awareness item. The more companies, boards have to now start to report items, suddenly they start to bring the item into their boardroom conversation, which is, how are we doing? Are Honda doing better than Toshiba? You know, is company X, company Y doing better, and so on. And I think what we saw in the UK with the 30% Club, they used peer pressure to increase the number of women on boards from Hong Kong's current level of 11% to now 25%, and the run rate is more than 30% of new appointments are women. But it all started with peer pressure. Abe is doing the same thing. He's using peer pressure to see if he can raise the interest level and the decision points.